I know not everybody can see me, but I would like for you to close your eyes. We're gonna take 3 deep breaths. So, okay. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Hold. And exhale. One more. 1, 2, 3. Hold. And exhale. Last one. 1, 2, 3. And exhale. All right. So you can slowly open your eyes. Welcome back. Okay. And now we're going to start.
So welcome, and thank you so much for being here. We are really excited, and we're really grateful for you to show up. You had a million places you could have been today. So we thank you. And we're here to celebrate the reintroduction of the Flowprints. Yes. And usually Helena hosts the show, but today for the special occasion, I will be leading the conversation.
Yeah.
And we'll see how this goes.
It's gonna go great.
It will. And so today we are going to explore in many different kinds of ways. We're going to explore the intersection of wellness and creativity, which is core to the Flowprints and also something that should be core to us on a day-to-day basis, right? So part of wellness is connecting with our authentic selves. And at the Flowprints on the podcast, we really like to ask the question, what helps you flow? What helped you flow, right? So Helena, this week or recently, tell us about a time, something that helped you flow.
Yeah. So recently, I would say a good chunk of you know me. So you know that I've been juggling a few things, a little too many things. And what helped me flow was EFT, which is tapping, getting a lot of sleep. I love sleeping. I love resting. Breath work. I feel like breath work has helped me. I think that's it. Yeah. What about you?
Well, lately, I've been traveling. I've been traveling for the last 3 weeks. So it's extra challenging, right? When you're not in your element, when you're not in your routine, when you're not eating exactly how you know your body receives, the food. So I think that I've been paying a lot of attention to what I'm eating while I'm traveling. I've also not had enough time to have kind of a yoga practice, the meditation practice that I usually have. So I make sure that in the morning, like 30 minutes, I just breathe in my body, looking where, there might be blocked energy, etc. And I do the same at night. And that really also, one of my favorites, just walking down the street, right? I see a tree, I see plants, I make a point to connect, right? To feel the energy, the exchange of the oxygen.
Grounding is really important to me. And sometimes staying regulated is not the easiest thing, but it's important to have moments throughout the day where you try and do that at least once. Try and not dissociate. So yeah, I relate. I haven't done it in a minute, but touching a tree, being, barefoot in the grass really helps, right?
It does. The grass is important. The grass is important. I haven't had that in a minute.
Yeah, I need that.
So tell us, before we jump in,
Yeah.
why don't you tell us and tell everyone who's listening a little bit more about the Flowprints. So who is the Flowprints and what does it do?
So I'm going to read right now because I feel like there's a number of new faces or people who might know me but might not know the Flowprints. So try to take in as much as you can. It's real quick. I promise. So our mission is to create spaces that empower primarily BIPOC and LGBTQ, as well as traditionally underrepresented creatives to express themselves fully. And we also center wellness practitioners who honor and preserve ancestral practices instead of fueling more gentrification. Because I know that that's something that's been happening a lot. And so, we really wanted to create a space where those people were prioritized. And we define creatives as artists, entrepreneurs, and anyone who taps into their inherent creativity. And that's, whether you're doing certain things from a more as a hobby or just doing any practice casually up to or down to whatever. It's not a hierarchy, but people who do it professionally. And we provide conversations and resources such as events, podcasts, stories, and other offerings that we hope inspire you and empower you as creative individuals. How does that sound?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, How does that sound?
How does that sound? Thank you.
So we're going to dive into many different little fields in the next few minutes to set the tone and give us a little background and a little more understanding. Why don't you tell us where you're from and give us a little glimpse of what growing up looked like? A little glimpse.
A little glimpse. Okay. Where I'm from is typically a question that I shy away from because it's not a straightforward one for me. I was born in France, and so for the main part, I grew up in France and in the UK. And I spent quite a bit of my childhood moving around a lot, making new friends, or not, sometimes. And I guess experiencing different cultures, and I feel like adapting is a big part of who I am now. I also lived in New York. I lived in Mexico for a little bit before being in Toronto. That's probably impacted me in how I love creating community. I love also for people to reach out and yeah, to co-create with people.
I love it. Yeah. I feel that. And what brought you to Toronto?
Because I had lived in, I would say, so after finishing school, which was for the most part in Europe, I went into acting. So my career in film and TV started, I would say about a decade ago at this point. And I was in New York, then was in Mexico because I could not stay in New York. The US is a pain in the ass. I went from acting to starting as a director, like directing a docuseries called Kaleidoscope Stories. And Toronto made sense because I felt like Canada had its own film and TV industry. And so that could keep growing, as well as just connecting with the network of, the circles that I had already in place. And I wasn't too far. So, yeah.
That answers it. Thanks. We'll get more details later. And tell us about. So we talked about the intersection of creativity and wellness, right? Tell us why that's important for you and what that means to you.
Okay, so and I also at some point want to hear from you all what that means. But what I ended up realizing, I think when that started when I was in Mexico. So I would say at the same time as I started my career in film and TV, or just really delving into being a professional artist, I started my spiritual journey. So we're all spiritual beings, and I feel like that begins whenever that begins, but there's sometimes a point where you consciously make that decision to get on that journey. And so for me, that happened at the same time, and started, I guess, seeing a lot of things bubble up to the surface in terms of my upbringing, in terms of what I would now look back and say, like, oh, those were limiting beliefs and just conditioning. And I feel like a lot of that was happening both because of the spiritual journey, but also because of where I was and who I was at that point as an artist. I was, again, directing my first series, Kaleidoscope Stories, and I was just finding a lot of starting and stopping happening, a lot of just challenges, and I was taking them very personally. I made them meant a lot about who I was, and I realized that there were probably people who realized that their career or, creative journey impacted their wellness journey and vice versa. So how I was doing in terms of my health was impacting how I was working and vice versa. And I really wanted to create more of a space to talk about things like that, to share tools, to have, all the conversations. And yeah, the last thing that I would say is something that I feel, if you're not from a highly creative family or people who are in certain industries, you might not have the guidance from someone to tell you So for me, I was a very artsy kid, very creative, always doing stuff. And that is kind of an identity. And then when you start pursuing things professionally, I feel like you need to not make that your identity. Like you are someone outside of that. And so I had not made that, like it hadn't clicked for me. All of that crystallized and made me want to do what we're doing now.
I can absolutely relate with the identity issue. Anyone here can relate with it's a constant reminder.
Yeah. We don't have a mic for you the way we thought we would, but I would love to see if someone would be comfortable sharing like what the intersection of creativity and wellness means for them. Oh, Sarah, I feel like you want to. No? Who? I don't know your name, but I feel like, yeah. Invasive. Yeah. I know you're looking left and right, but yeah. One of you two. Let's say one of you two. It's a safe space. We're not judging.
I appreciate that. Intersection of creativity and wellness, and what that means to me.
Mm-hmm.
That intersection, for me personally, is where I feel safest.
Mm-hmm.
When I am able to ground myself in my wellness practices and create from that place, I believe that it is easier for us to do the work to not allow the identity back and forth to plague us so much. Yeah, that's what I have to offer on the spot.
Thank you so much. I hear you, and I identify with that too. Yeah. What about you, Melissa? What does that mean to you?
There's so many levels to it. But I really relate what you just mentioned, the plague, like it blinds us, right? When we have the worry, there's an anxiety. When we're not fully aligned. Because to me, creativity is us sharing, right? It's us expressing. Wellness is the balance. It's the alignment. And whenever there's something blocked, we can't, like I'm at a point where I feel it, right? It's like right here, yeah. Like physically. Yeah. And the release, and sometimes, like you mentioned, you're in a creative moment and you're like releasing all of this stuff during the act of the creation. And I think that with practice, we become more and more aware of these little nuggets, and I think that's how we evolve and become more fluid.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing. So tell us, next question I got for you, we'll switch a little bit into the Flowprints.
Oh, yeah.
So when did you start the Flowprints?
So with what I said before, I would say that all of that was happening, I would say around 2016, 2017. So by 2020, while we were in lockdown, I feel like a lot of things just started happening like faster for me, spiritually speaking. And so at that point, my docuseries had been out. I had been briefly in another podcast, and I felt like, again, those tools and all those modalities, I just wanted to delve into deeper and share them with people. So I remember I took a walk. Everything was closed. It was super dark at night. And I started recording myself, just talking to myself on my phone. And I realized that podcasting for the Flowprints, it wasn't called the Flowprints yet, but that for my next project, so for, in terms of wellness, that would be the right format. And so I started experimenting. I started recording. I started, co-hosting and then doing it solo. I realized that the podcast might be like more of a flagship offering, and then that I would have something bigger around it. I feel like I've always kind of been, I would say, a guide in a lot of people's lives, like my family, my friends, and progressively, I just wanted a space to also tap into that part of my purpose, right? And create space for others and share what I had learned. And then you came along.
And so you talked a little bit about the mindset you were in when you started the Flowprints and the inspiration behind it.
Yeah.
Did you have anything that you wanted to add on to the inspiration that we didn't touch?
Hopefully that's what you mean, because I feel like you have something in mind. But what? Or do you not?
I have no agenda.
No? Okay. So one thing that, and I feel like we've talked about it a little bit before, like as we were prepping this event, I channel a lot, but I'm used to doing it with my friends and family. I'm used to doing it in private conversations. And so I guess there's a learning curve for me to do that with, in a setting like this one today, or just with people that I might not have like an ongoing relationship with that is really close. I think it's also just being, hyper aware of the mic, or just like filtering myself a little bit sometimes. I guess it's an experimentation in every way. It's, and I'm at that point where I'm getting more and more comfortable just like exploring things and not necessarily knowing what it's going to look like, and just trusting that it's going to be a great offering. So I didn't really touch on that before, but I think part of the limiting beliefs that I struggled with at some point, I feel like now it's not, I'm doing a lot better with it, but perfectionism and just feeling safe making mistakes. Yeah, just being seen in that mode was not something that I feel I grew up knowing was okay. And so it was probably part of like why my mental health went south, to be honest. And so, yeah, I'm doing that. The Flowprint, it's like a playground, but it's like something that I also take seriously, if that makes sense.
It's like your daily reminder. Definitely.
It's like in my face constantly, like the things that I might have been navigating little by little in the past, or like, how do I say this? In a way that was probably slower. It's like I just have to work through things a bit faster when it comes to, our company. It's interesting doing that professionally.
I get that. And so today's the reintroduction, the rebirth. The rebirth. What does that mean to you?
I feel like you should answer that too. The rebirth for me, it's like I'm a new version of me, because we took a break, right? We took a break for about 1.5 years, almost 2. Well, yeah. This month will be 2 months. 2 years, sorry. And I feel like it's a new invitation to, exploring things, a new version of me that I'm getting to know, and then figuring out also at the same time what that this new version of the Flowprints is.
You want me to answer that too?
Yeah.
I am super excited about this. I mean, I'm excited about this collaboration, right? But I'm excited about this collaboration. I'm excited about the conversations. I'm excited about creation, collaborations, showing up for each other, and inspiring others to do the same. Because we're all at different levels when it comes to everything we do. It's not just creativity and wellness, but like in this case, we're all at different levels. And how do we together, collectively, kind of grow together in this? And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
And that's what rebirth is, right? Like We'll talk a little bit more in a few minutes about the pause, but you know, we take a step back. Sometimes we fall, sometimes we feel like we break apart, but really we're just in transformation, right? Like for the next level, for the next leap, for the next challenge, and it will happen again. Yeah. And it's a cycle. Yeah. So you've been talking a lot about the art of slowing down. Tell me about this concept.
The art of slowing down. I think the term in and of itself came to me, I think midway through the first season of the podcast. And it was because I was at that point juggling so many things. Like, I just, looking back, don't understand how I was doing it. I was auditioning pretty much every day. I was writing. I was, just recording for the podcast, editing, doing the whole thing. And just also managing the team, in terms of the social media, all of that. I don't know how I was doing all those things, but I felt like the Flowprints being that playground that I said, and just like this, this part of my purpose, it was also the place for me to do what I said I was going to do. And what I mean in terms of wellness is, like, if we're going to talk about pacing things, about listening to yourself, about just taking our time, it means that no matter what the project is, you have to take your time. And if it means a break, if it means, however long that break is, then you need to take it. And I feel like that's when it came to me. It's a concept that's really important to me, and I try to just remind myself of that even in my professional career, like in the different moments when I'm feeling like there's a little too much on my plate, that it is important for me to take a breather, and it's fully okay.
Did you find any difference? So we went through a wild 4 years. Yeah. Did you find any other meaning when the pandemic happened?
Well, there's two ways that, and I had a conversation with a friend that's in the audience about the pandemic, because for me, I felt like it allowed me to tap way deeper into who I was spiritually and what I wanted and all of that. And I know that that's also a privilege, because not everybody was able to focus on those things during that time. There's another part of it that I did not realize for certain people, was that, a lot of people were working from home, and so they ended up doing a lot more than they were doing in an office in person. Just having zero boundaries between, like, the work that they were doing at home and the time that was, for their own personal stuff. And I guess in that way I was more boundaried than some people. But those two things, I feel like, fall into learning the art of slowing down. It's like, you're going to have the intuitive ways that you do it if you're connected in that way. But then there's also, just a way where it can be hard to do that. So in terms of the pandemic, I feel like it taught us certain things about how we want to manage our time, or how we want to show up in certain areas.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. When people started working from home, you don't have that I'm walking to work, or I'm going to work, that and I'm coming back, right? That pause. And also, we all know in offices where, you have the water cooler conversations, and you're walking to the bathroom, and the bathroom is way further than it is in your house. So just the little things, right, like that, right? That before we had the built-in breaks and the built-in people around us. So
I think this might be a good moment to still acknowledge, like, hustle culture, because I feel like we should be way out of that at this point, but it's still like an ongoing journey, I feel, for everybody, because we also have, like, just society that's around us, and productivity is a big thing. And even when you consciously know that that's not what you want to do, you might still have little parts of you that engage with that and that need to be reminded that it is okay to slow down.
Who here thinks that they have a good work-life balance? There's a few. Okay. There's some shy hands. There's some, we're on the way. We're on the way, right? Like there's a big, like, okay, it's in progress. I understand that. So let's say you have a deadline, right? Mm-hmm. You're in a moment of stress, let's say, like, who here pushes through, is going to get it done? Okay, that's a lot of people.
That's the majority.
That's the majority. And who will ask for help or will ask to push the deadline and ask for more time? Okay, we still got a bunch of, it's good balance. Good balance. Some people, yeah. Yourself?
For me, I think I'm just going to look at how much freedom I have and what I can prioritize. And so for things that I'm able to press pause on, I will do that immediately. I'm also, I think, vocal at this point when it comes to sharing how I feel in the moment. So at the very least, that's something I'm going to do. And if there's a possibility to push a deadline, I will push it. It's interesting because even right now, like I feel like some of us, because I have CFC, people from the cohort right here, and we have a lot of deadlines. We love the work that we do. We love that we get to, further our craft and everything. It can be quite demanding at times. And so for me, I try to communicate what my needs might be. And I think some of my classmates do too.
And I've seen that from you.
Yeah.
So good work.
This event, initially we wanted it to be in July. And my head started spinning. It's like, and this is where I really, really appreciate you and the fact that we have the space to do that. Because there's a point where I was doing a lot of things, I think, on my own when it comes to the Flowprints. And so it was easy to press pause. Then I had a moment where I was like, okay, would you welcome that? Or would that be something where you're like, this is not, a serious project if she's able to not, to stop or just to press pause like that. I love that we were able to just like acknowledge that and like just push the event.
There was, and I appreciate you to share. I mean, you shared it as well, right? Which took, you being in your person to do. I saw a hand. Was there a comment or an experience that you wanted to share? Yeah.
I had a question. So, have you been in situations where you've communicated what your limitations are or how you're doing, or just like boundaries, and people kind of have either just not really processed that or really taken it and really done anything with it? Like, and how do you proceed from there, especially when you're in a space of like, you're like, I've reached my limit, I have to slow down, and other people are kind of just like, kind of moving with the expectation that they're like, I think you can do more, or just kind of not really seeing, like, how do you kind of navigate those spaces?
Yeah, I remember one of my, the last side hustle that I had. So I remember taking a mental health break that my therapist at the time had just signed off on, like all of that. And I think there was like a switch in the managers. So I had like an admin job at the time. And the new one just did not want to help me get back to the number of hours. So essentially I was asking for a progressive return to my job. And I was not doing anything, that saves lives. So, no. I'm not going to say what industry because this is recorded. And yeah, there's just a click. I'm also a very intuitive person, but I'm very much, a human being who is still working through things, just like everybody in this room. But there's a point where I felt like they were not listening. And so I put it in writing. I said, are you saying that this is not possible? And essentially what she was saying was, you are fired, right? And I was like, so you are indeed saying that we're done, right? Just to say that this is not me quitting, right? So HR like completely flipped out after that and ended up kind of flipping on me trying. And so, yeah, I got a lawyer. So I would say when you have your boundaries, like your boundaries are for you, right? So I fully understand that it's very valid and very real what other people are going to try and pressure you and say that, oh no, this is what you should be doing. So in my case, it went a little far. I still won. I still, but it did get lawyers involved. And I remember telling that one of the conditions for me to accept whatever money they were going to give me was also to train their staff and to acknowledge what had just happened as something that should not be happening, because you cannot fire someone for mental health reasons. So I would say, and maybe it sounds a little too simplistic, but you're clear on your boundaries, you're clear on your values, and in that moment, it's up to you to really honor that, right? And there might be certain consequences, but those consequences will tend to be better than what would have happened if you had let them do whatever they wanted to do and force you to do something that you had no capacity for. So hopefully that answers the question. Yeah. And get support from the people who love you. Text me.
Thanks for the question. It's a great one. I'm going to add a small thing. And I wasn't always in good positions with good bosses, but I'm going to tell a good story. I was the one who was taking on all the work. I was the one who was staying late all the time. And because I felt like I needed to prove myself, right? Prove myself to the team. And one day, one of my great bosses, he said, Melissa, until you let the things fall through the cracks, I cannot ask for help at the board or like for budget because you're overworking. You are showing us you can make it happen. And until you actually stop and put your own boundaries, then we'll get you some help. And then I have proof that I can get you some help.
I love that it's a great boss that said that. So I have the bad boss and you have the great one. But it's true. I feel like and that's true outside of work. The more you take on, the more people think that, it's just fine. And I'm sure in the room there's people who might relate to being, that friend that people forget to ask how you're doing because you're the strong friend. And that sucks. But that's sometimes because we've been moving through life in ways where without wanting to, we're showing people that we can keep going. Yeah, I think it's important to communicate your limits.
Agreed. So channeling back a little bit to the Flowprints and the rebirth and the reintroduction. Mm-hmm. So you said we've been on pause for about 2 years.
Yep.
Would you like to tell us why?
I think it's the moment for a trigger warning, just in case. I'm going to talk about grief and loss. If anyone is uncomfortable with that, please, take care of yourself. And if you have to leave for a little bit, it's okay. I lost one of my siblings 2 years ago, and I haven't really spoken about it publicly. I feel like certain people do know or kind of understood because I've been off Instagram a lot. It was very sudden. His name was Raphael. He passed at almost 26, so his birthday is at the end of this month. And the break happened exactly when we were going to do the first event at, the previous iteration of the Flowprints. I took a break. I actually, this is in a weird way a summary, because that was kind of a tsunami, obviously for my family. We're 4 siblings, and my other brother ended up in the hospital within 48 hours. So the impact on his body was like immense, something that was already happening to him. So I'm not going to speak too much on it because that's his private, health. But he was bleeding internally because his blood pressure was super high. And I remember telling everyone in my family to be very mindful of our bodies, to drink water, to try and sleep when we could. And I'm very, very grateful that I feel like that was spirit, talking through me and just saying like, we need to be extremely mindful, because I don't want to say something that's too general, but I would say in general, men will tend to be less mindful about their health. I feel like my dad and my brother, my Axel, were very mindful in that moment. And so he ended up in a coma for a month. So he missed the funeral. And yeah, I feel like that experience taught me to be completely unapologetic about taking time for myself, taking time to prioritize what was imperative, like just the biggest priority in that moment. So even though the art of slowing down is like a cute saying, in that moment I was like, I have to stop. This company is in my image, and I don't know how I'm going to deal with grief. I don't know what this is going to look like. My family, a lot of my family is, or at least I'm going to talk about my parents, my siblings. They're right now in Europe. I am on my own here in Canada. And so I did not want to have too much on my plate as I was just learning to process everything. So that was the big reason for the pause. That was the big reason for me just also transforming, becoming a completely different person. I know.
If you're comfortable, do you want to dig in a little bit into your balance at the time, your mindset at the time?
I remember being very centered in a way, but also like both around me, it was just a complete chaos. There were elements of chaos also within me, but I felt like something was very still within me. I feel like I just really understood like in an archetypal type of way, my place in my family. I'm the eldest. So in that moment, it felt like just the realest embodiment of just like the third parent. I also felt like I had to focus on the best possible outcome, and I could not let myself go completely, like just think of the worst case scenario. And so that helped me just stay very, like there was a certain level of clarity about what was happening, and also how everything had somewhat prepared me to be that person in that moment. I think all the different practices, all the growth that I'd had, all the things that I had learned, the tools, in that period of time, it was like, oh, all this happened for a reason. And it's so that I could be there not only for myself, but also for my family, and show up in that way.
And what were do you remember some of the tools that you used during that period?
I think visualization was a massive thing. Still EFT, breath work. I relied on my friends a lot, and they were awesome. Really just able to check in with me, but also check in with each other. Because there's certain moments, like, when you have someone in the hospital and people might relate because you've, gone through it or had people who went to, through certain things. Every day is like a different thing. Like you can get news at any point. And so when I did not want to put my focus on like something that was extremely scary, I would let my friends communicate with each other what was up so that I didn't have to repeat it. I'm very big on affirmations and just the fact that our words are spells. And so whenever I was just learning something that was, again, very scary, I would acknowledge it, I would process, I would feel my feelings and then recenter immediately. And I think that discipline came from all the years, like the almost decade of inner work that I had done. And it's, I don't want to make it seem like this was like, ooh, a walk in the park. It was not. It's just that I felt prepared in the weirdest way.
Well, thanks for sharing, and we're happy you're back. We're happy the Flowprints is back. So, what's next for the Flowprints?
More of this. More events. Just more spaces to be in community, to have certain conversations. Would love to collab and just keep building with you all. And with you, of course. The goal is just to have more products that are available to all of you that keep inspiring you, keep allowing you to grow and to be empowered, to feel like you have the tools, and that if you don't, that it's okay. Maybe you know someone that you can reach out to. And so expanding that is really where I want to go. And I know that I will also grow as an individual, as a creative, as a businesswoman, as a practitioner, a healer. So I'm looking forward to that. What about you?
What about me?
Yeah.
The vision for the...
What's the vision?
What's the vision? What's next for the Flowprints? I think you said it well. Yeah. Exactly that. Expanding the conversations, making it bubble, because it's not just us, right? It's like, then we leave in the world and we have that conversation with the people surrounding us, right? And that's how we can just create the world we want to be in, right?
Yeah.
And what's next for you, personally?
That's a lot. It's a loaded question. What's next for me? Being iconic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, but that's really it. Like, just to be able to exist in the different spaces that I'm really passionate about. So, in wellness, being that amazing founder and resource for other people, to continue to be a great friend. I'm at the CFC, and this is, I think, like a pivotal thing. So the CFC is a Canadian Film Center, because not everybody's familiar, sorry. And so it's a big part of my journey as a screenwriter. And so that is what's, I think, just what's next is going to be a lot of different opportunities, like just putting out more shows, more features, more films, being in front and behind the camera, and creating a career, a path that is exactly what I want. Because something that I do say anytime that I give workshops, that I am a facilitator, a mentor in any capacity, I try to remind people that even though we're told that there's certain rules in the industry, and that, or whatever industry that you're in, because that will apply, particularly if you're a creative, you're going to have, again, those little voices externally or internally that will tell you that you have to push through, or that you have to just do more, that you're not enough. And it's about like reclaiming that and being that person that crafts their own career, their own path that looks exactly like what they want. That is, where you take your time with certain things, where you put out the types of projects that you want, you uplift the types of, stories that you want, and you're gonna find your people too. So for me, like, I'm really excited about that. Thank you. We're gonna wrap it up, right? Yeah. So thank you so much for listening, for being present, for participating. I hope you had a great time. I hope your cup feels full and that you continue to, fill it up, because we're having a mixer.
And we want to thank our sponsors for today. We have the Canada Council for the Arts. Woo! Yes.
Give us more money. Yay.
We have Black Women Talk Tech. We have Floré, who gave us the incense. We have Hopeberry soaps, who provided the soaps. They're amazing. They smell amazing. Woolen Clay, Na-Mii, and Blackhurst. On that, come and see us at theflowprints.com, online, on the socials at the Flowprints, and
follow us too.
And follow us, yes.
Yeah.
Helena, Melissa, we're all on there. Let's have fun. Let's have some drinks and go meet someone you haven't met. Tell them how you flow. Tell them what helps you flow. And thank you so much.